in December to serve as the presiding officer. So thank you for that. And we'll go ahead and let others introduce themselves. Tina, do you want to go ahead and go?
Sure, thank you. This is Tina Chamberlain. I work for DOJ as the Missing Indigenous Persons staff and as the link coordinator, and that's for Looping in Native Communities coordinator. Dana?
Yeah, thank you. This is Dana Toole. I am the Special Services Bureau Chief in the Division of Criminal Investigation at Montana Department of Justice. And both the Looping in Native Communities and the Montana Missing Indigenous Person Task Force programs are in my bureau. Brian, how about you?
You bet. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Frost with Montana DOJ as well. I'm the Missing Person Specialist within Montana Department of Justice. Good afternoon. Ernie?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ernie Wyan. I'm the U.S. Department of Justice MMIP coordinator for District of Montana. Thank you.
Iris?
Yes, I'm Iris Killigal, and I represent the Little Shell tribes.
Derek?
Derek Warner, captain of the Montana Highway Patrol. I'm out of District 8 and I'm a task force member.
And Jared?
Jared Cobell, Assistant U.S. Attorney at the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Tribal Liaison for the District of Montana.
And is there anybody else that I may have missed who hasn't?
Valerie.
Valerie on the
Oh,
phone.
Valerie, yep.
Hello, my name is Valerie Fallsdown, and I'm from the ProTech.
Perfect. I believe that's it, Ellie.
Okay, it looks like we have Brian is going to give us a missing persons specialist update.
Okay, let me get your slideshow up, Brian.
Thanks, Tina.
Okay.
So first off, I'd like to apologize. Thank you. I have been gone the last couple of meetings. The reason being is my wife gave birth on Halloween. So I'm sorry I missed the last couple. I promise I wasn't just playing hooky, or if I was playing hooky, it was a lot of no sleeping hooky. So I think that's probably the worst. But I do want to say just good afternoon. Congratulations, Ellie. Well deserved. And just hi, everybody. Changing gears a little bit. And there's my little guy right there. He'll be 3 months pretty soon. So he's getting there. He just discovered his feet this morning. So that was pretty interesting.
Cute.
This was a big deal. That was really even without socks. He was just good. But more importantly, the reason I'm here to talk today is just kind of give you a rundown of recent active missing persons cases. So this is a report that was run this morning right around 7 a.m. So it is pretty current. One thing I'll caution you on, and I say this every time, but I do think it's important, is because this is fluid, this is always dynamic. If you go to our missing persons website, you'll often see that the data is different than what you see right here. And because this is just a snapshot at one given time.
I will put you on speaker here, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you do visit the website, you'll notice that there may be slight variances in the data, and that's because it's always moving. Thankfully, missing persons are found, and unfortunately, more missing persons are reported. So you'll see them entered into the database real time. So for those of you guys that are on the phone, I'll read out the slides to you, and just so everybody can kind of see what's going on. So as of this morning, around 7 a.m., we had 185 active missing persons.
Just a second, Pat. Sorry.
Those 185 people were identified as Indigenous persons. That does represent about 30% of all active missing persons cases. Of that, 30 of them are Indigenous persons under the age of 21. Because Montana and federal law states that anybody under the age of 21 needs to be entered into a federal missing persons database within 2 hours, including our database, we do consider anybody under 21 as being juvenile. For that breakdown, 27 male, 29 are female. And it looks like Tina just took it off. Let me see if I can share my screen.
I think Tina's trying to connect Pat to the meeting from Fort Peck. So
Meantime, I'll read out the statistics. It won't let me share my screen currently, but I'll continue with the statistics. So 27 male, 29 female Indigenous persons, 22 missing Indigenous persons are flagged as runaway. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't more runaways, but that just means that law enforcement specifically suggested or flagged that these missing juveniles were basically reported as a runaway. Now I'm going to share my screen so you guys hopefully can see it. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Hopefully, can you guys all see it now?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry about that. So 22 were reported as runaway. And then unfortunately, 18 missing Indigenous persons have been missing for over 1 year. Just because it is important that we really reiterate that these aren't just statistics, these are real people and there's families behind these people. I do have a list of all the missing Indigenous persons here in Montana. I've actually split it in two so it makes it a little bit easier to read, but it was neat, you know, having my son born and that, all the things that kind of get entailed with that. But coming back to work, it also serves as a stark reminder that it's nice that I can come home and hold my son and feed him and play with him and all that. There's an awful lot of families that don't have that. And while we don't have any infants currently on the missing persons list, we have had infants in the past, and we have some missing persons as young as 4. So it's nice to be back to work, but it's also a startling reminder that there's an awful lot of families that have missing loved ones. Another thing I'll point out, and like I said, I've just kind of split the list in two so it makes it a little bit easier to read. On the left side, you can see all the different law enforcement agencies that are responsible for the missing person's case or the investigation for that missing person. We've broken it down, and one thing that really stands out, and this just is a graphical representation to show you how many missing persons cases there are per agency, is that we actually have 19 different law enforcement agencies that have entered missing Indigenous persons that have active cases. So it's one of those things where sometimes you hear that mostly it happens on the reservation or maybe the urban Indian centers, but really we have agencies from all across Montana that have active missing persons cases that are Indigenous. Lastly, I'll leave you guys with one other thing. I usually take a look at a little bit deeper dive, kind of at face value first to grab the major statistics, and then we take a little bit deeper dive and I look and see if there's any flags on missing person entries. So one of those things I look at is, are they repeat missing persons? That means is that a person that's been entered missing, they were located, and then they were reported missing again. That has been the case. So in this case, 11 out of the 30 juveniles we do have are repeat missing persons. They've gone missing, they've been found, and then they went missing again. 3 juveniles are listed with possible suicidal ideations. Additionally, 5 juveniles had reported substance use, whether drugs, alcohol, or both, but it is something to mention. 2 juveniles were reported as possibly violent or aggressive. One thing I'll really point out, or at least I'll ask everybody, there's another statistic I could start presenting on here if you guys are interested. I see this quite a bit on the missing persons list. We do have quite a few non-custodial parental missing persons, meaning that a parent or guardian who is no longer a parent or guardian, they no longer have custody of the child, has taken the missing person. So technically they're listed as involuntary. But one of the things for the missing youth that really kind of stand out is I could start including the statistics if you're interested in those cases that law enforcement has flagged as possible custodial interference. Is that something you guys would be interested in? You think so?
Sure.
Okay. That's something I can start doing, but I did want to give you guys kind of a breakdown of this is where active missing persons cases are right now in Montana as of just this morning.
Brian, I think Jared may have had a question.
Sure. Jared, do you have anything else to add? I thought you said give an affirmative like you'd like to hear it, but.
Yeah, that's all I was saying. It'd be interesting to see that separated out a little bit.
Yeah, I think sometimes it may change things. I mean, we're looking at, you know, repeat missing persons, but we could include ones that are suspected of custodial interference. Once again, any of these flags are just based on what the law enforcement agency has entered into the database. So that's all I can see. There may be more that have possible suicidal ideations or reported substance abuse. It's just that law enforcement hasn't made those comments available for me to see in the database. So I think it's something we can visit. Otherwise, I'd like to turn it back over to you, Ellie. I appreciate it, and I will stop sharing the screen.
Thank you, Brian. And you'll send that out through email? Can you do that?
Tina has it now. If she doesn't mind sending it to the group, that would be wunderbar.
Perfect, thank you. And Tina, you're up next with a link update.
Thank you. I'm just going to put our agenda up on my screen. I do not have a lot of updates on Link other than to tell you we discussed a possible redesign at our last meeting, and the new website is currently being developed by Sean Dillon up in Whitefish. He is providing his time for free to update our website, bring it to a different platform so that we have more capacity and functionality on that website. We're hoping to have something to look at the end of February and get it up and running possibly by March. So that is my news on Link right now. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Tina. And it looks like Dana, can you provide us with the overview of the legislative process?
Sure, yeah. So as you all know, session started a couple weeks ago here in Helena, and it's very busy, and all of the bills that came out of the task force to the State Tribal Relations Committee have become active right away. So those bills are Senate Bill 4, which had a hearing last week, and then House Bill 35, 36, and 98. And those all have hearings on Thursday. So just a quick overview of the session. This is an unusual session. It's a hybrid model, so there are some legislators at the Capitol, and there are some legislators appearing in their committee meetings and their floor sessions through technology. In general, right now, testimony in front of committees is also a mix. Some people are coming to Helena and going to the Capitol and testifying in front of the committee in person. Some people are testifying remotely via Zoom. So all of the committees that our bills are in front of from the task force have the ability to get testimony by Zoom. And in some ways, that's great, because that means for task force members around the state who may be interested in appearing at these meetings, it's actually easier than trying to get to Helena for these bills. So so we're starting out fast with these bills, which is also nice because the session is calmer and the committees are hearing less bills per meeting now. So just a quick overview of how the bigger process works. Each of the bills has a primary sponsor. Senator Small is sponsoring Senate Bill 4, and Representative Paragoy is sponsoring House Bills 35, 36, and 98. Each of the bills will get a hearing in the House, and then those House bills will transfer to the Senate and get a hearing in the Senate if they make it out of committee, and vice versa with Senate Bill 4 has already had a hearing in the Senate, and that one actually is progressing nicely and was passed out of the committee, and it will come over to the House for a hearing. So each of these bills will at a minimum have 2 hearings. If there are amendments, or if there are appropriations attached to the bills, which there are, then they will also have hearings in different appropriation committees. So in other words, there's a lot to keep track of, and Tina is doing a really nice job of checking every day on the progress of these bills, and then she'll be emailing the task force the status of these bills as the status changes and they move through the process. But just in a ballpark, so far it looks like for sure each of them is going to have probably 2 hearings. And then the hearing process, testifying is different. And so Tina is going to walk us through the current way to testify remotely. The legislature had to set up some kind of a system for citizens from around the state to be able to get a Zoom link to testify in the meeting. And so what they decided to do is they developed an online system. And there are some screens, and Tina will show you, they're on the state website. There's a key thing to remember about that for the task force members and for others who are interested is, if you decide that you want to testify on a bill, you have to register online by noon the day before the hearing. So for example, the 3 bills that are up Thursday morning at 8 in House Judiciary for the task force, if you want to testify, or if you want to send the committee a written document, which you can upload, Tina will show you in a minute, all of that has to be done by noon the day before the hearing. So it requires just some planning ahead, which of course, if you were going to drive here, you would also have to plan ahead for that too. So, just something important to know. If you do miss the deadline for noon the day before, you can still watch the hearing on the watch and listen section of the state website, the state legislative website. But there's no second system that will get your testimony into the committee if that deadline is missed. I don't have anything else, although I'm happy to answer any specific questions about how the bills are progressing. And, you know, if you have other questions about the process in general, I'm happy to revisit those. And Tina also can answer questions about that. We're trying really hard to make sure that you all have the information that's really current about the bills, because these bills came out early in the session and there's a lot of activity. So we're doing our best to track that for all of you. And that's kind of all I have. Tina, I see Tina's putting the screen up, the how-to. Yeah.
Yes. So this is the main page for the Montana legislative session, and the web address up here is leg.mt.gov. So if you're interested in looking up a bill, you can click on bill search here on the upper left-hand corner and look up the bill that you're interested in. We have one Senate bill, number 4, and then the 3 House bills that Dana spoke about. If you want to testify for any bills, you would go down just under this bubble here and click on request to testify remotely. So I'm going to click on that, and you can watch me go through the process here. It says public testimony, so you know you're on the right spot. Couple of links here at the top. One will allow you to look at the bills that are scheduled for the next 4 days. So if you typed in today's date, you could look up the bill that you're interested in to see if it's on the schedule. I do that sometimes just to check and make sure that what we think is happening is going to. So you'd click on House Judiciary and click submit. Scroll through that to the date that you understand the hearing to be. And for us, we are in the judiciary. So right here at the top, there's 4 hearings on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. If we go back, I can show you how to complete your testimony. So you would need to select the bill. I would be selecting House Bill 35, establish a missing persons review commission, select the committee. It has already defaulted to the committee that will hold the hearing. And then you need to provide information. You have 3 choices here. One is as a proponent, one is as an opponent, and one as an informational witness. So for this demonstration, I'll select informational witness. I'm not representing any party other than myself, but if you were representing someone on behalf of another party, you would click yes. Enter your full name here, your email address, my work phone number. Well, that didn't work out, but you know what I'm doing here. State and city and state of residence, I'm in Helena. So they just want that basic information. I think it's just for the record and to make sure they can get a hold of you.
So Tina, let me just pop in for a sec. The email part is
Mhm.
actually really important because that's how they're going to send you the link to attend the meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so that it's important that if you have a number of different email addresses, you'll want to use the one that you're checking most frequently, because they will send you the Zoom link to that one.
That's correct. Thank you, Dana. At the next section, you're requested to upload documents. You can provide brief written statements if you want to testify via Zoom. They do want something written so that they know what you're planning to provide during a Zoom meeting in case there are some technical difficulties. You can upload your entire testimony, or you can write in this box here that you would like to speak and what your points would be in your testimony. So if I were to be an informational witness, I would just type that in here. One thing to remember is if you are looking to upload a document, you would choose files here, and that would take you to your computer drive. You would select one of your files, and then you would upload that file on this button here. Make sure to click upload, and I believe when you do that, Ellie, you had something that asked you to finish, is that correct?
You have to put a comment, I believe, in the upper box saying see attached if you're going to just
Okay.
attach a document.
Okay. Thank you. We just want to make sure that you're getting all the steps that you have to do, because if you upload a document, it's probably going to ask you, are you finished? You'll click on that, but before you leave this screen, you also need to select if you want to request, if you want to testify before the committee via Zoom, yes or no, and how you'll be joining either by phone or by computer. And then you click submit. That's really important. That's what sends this to the legislative staff. And that's when you will get an email from legislative staffing telling you what the web address is to join the Zoom call. Anything else that I need to point out on that, Dana or Ellie?
Yeah, so my experience when we did it last week was an email came really fast that said, we've received it. And then the email with the Zoom link did not come until the morning of the hearing. So if you decide to register online and you don't get a response from Legislative Services pretty quickly that they got that you were signed up, maybe go back in and try again, because something might have happened. And then in general, they're not sending the Zoom links out until shortly before the hearing. So for an 8 a.m. hearing, I'm guessing we'll maybe get it the evening before, but maybe not. They may be coming out even earlier that morning. And I think there's some required information. You know, the legislature's never done this before. We're in a whole new territory here. So read the website carefully. And I think in that box, Tina, where you have to write something, can you scroll back down to that?
Sure.
So yeah, what I think is good, where it says write your comment or testimony in the field below. I would, even though they already have your name, I would put your name in again, your title if you have it, and then if you're a proponent, an opponent, or informational. I'm not sure exactly what gets to the committee members, but I think the more opportunity you have to say who you are and what your position is, the better, because the legislators are also learning this new process. And the chairpersons of all the committees, it's giving them a lot to manage. So instead of being able to look out into the room and see who's there and ask for a show of hands about who's going to testify which direction on the bill, they are now also looking out into the room, and then they're also getting an electronic list about who's there and what they're going to do. So just as much information. The other thing that I watched happen last week that I don't know, because again, we're early in the session and the chairs of the committees are also on a learning curve. If you want to connect to the microphone and testify over your computer in person, then last week someone uploaded testimony but also wanted to speak in person, but because they had uploaded, the chair of the committee with an eye on the clock basically just said, if you've sent it to us, then you don't need to appear, you don't need to speak to us. So I think make a decision. If you want to speak, maybe you could send your testimony in a separate email or something. I'm not sure if you upload testimony that you will actually get to speak unless the chair lets you. Both of those are good things. It's good to speak and it's also good to send written testimony. But just remember, no one's ever done this before. So if it doesn't go perfectly, please don't get too stressed about it. Like, for example, last week, my microphone wasn't working very well. So when I testified, I think the committee heard a lot of screeching. So now I've got a new microphone. But everybody's on a learning curve. I guess the most important thing is that participation is important. You know, as much, I think Ellie's going to talk about that, but it's our public process in Montana. It's open to everyone, and it's important to participate as much as you can. And Tina and I are here to help. So questions, concerns, anything, please let us know.
Thanks, Dana and Tina. So next on the agenda shows me doing legislative updates. So you've already heard a little bit about those, but in just speaking to Senate Bill 4, which was the 2-year extension of our task force being held on Tuesday, the 12th, and Senator Small did a great job presenting that. And it was really great to see so many proponents for the bill and no opposition. So it felt good. Fingers crossed, feeling optimistic. And so thank you to everybody who was able to participate. Senate Bill 4 mirrors House Bill 98. And so 98 is going to include the Looping in Native Communities grant program, as Tina discussed earlier. And so that was a little bit confusing when I was trying to read both bills and figure out my testimony, but just know that it's going to include the LINK Act, or the and that it's actually a placeholder. I think Senator Small, when he was talking, we addressed the reasoning for both of those. The task force being included in both is that it was a placeholder, so that somehow we can try to get this moved through, whether it's through Senate Bill 4 or House Bill 98. And again, Senate Bill or House Bill 35 and 36 are going to be held on Thursday. 35 is to establish a missing persons review commission. And that review commission will look at the trends and patterns of missing Indigenous persons, educate law enforcement and policymakers about MMIP, and recommend strategies for investigation and participation, or prevention, sorry. House Bill 36 is going to asking to establish a missing persons response team training grant program that will address the significant number of missing person cases in Indian country, provide funding for teams to attend trainings in Montana that will improve the response, search, and canvassing activities, investigation, and services associated with missing persons. Make sure to read those. There's a lot more information. And with that, though, I would just like to ask task members, if at all possible, please register to testify for 1, 2, or 3 of those if you can. It does help that they're all on the same day. You can block out that one time frame, speak to all 3 of them. And I feel like as tribal leaders, we have an obligation to our people to help advance this legislation. We have the power to influence if we just step up and let our voices be heard. So please consider that. Brief statements are fine, as mentioned earlier. It's just you're present on the call. Your presence there could make all the difference. So please consider that. And that's all I have, unless you feel like you want more detail, ladies, on 35, 36. No. Other topics. It looks like Facebook page. Tina, did you want to?
Sure, I'll take that. I got an email request from one of our task force members to talk about a Facebook page at this meeting. She wanted to make sure it was on the agenda. We know that Facebook can be a powerful tool for engaging with others, and the task force member requested that we have a Facebook page for task force activities. And I just wanted to let you know that as part of the LINK grant program and the website that we've developed, there's also an MMIP space MT Facebook page. And it makes sense to me that the task force could possibly use that Facebook page that's already been established and is actually being managed by the LINK team up at Blackfeet Community College. So as they work on the website, they're also putting information on the Facebook page. And so I just thought I'd bring it up that is an option that could nicely meld the work that the task force is doing with the work that Blackfeet Community College's LINK team is doing as well. If that option is not what task force members want, then developing a new Facebook page would probably be the next step, and somebody to moderate and design that web page. Unfortunately, I cannot do that and Dana can't, but if somebody on the task force wants to do that, that's certainly another option. So that's all I have, Ellie.
Thanks, Tina. Is there anybody on the task force who has any thoughts about how you'd like to proceed with that page? If we should use what's existing or create new?
Well, I don't see anything wrong with using the current one. Is there?
It doesn't sound like it, no. It would definitely be the easiest, most straightforward way to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody who has opposition to doing that? Hearing none, Tina, I think we could go ahead and
Okay.
put
Then
that up.
I will talk to the LINK team at Blackfeet. Jared, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just curious who would have ownership of that page and permissions and things like that, and you know, if anything's ever on there that, you know, maybe needs to be changed or something, who's going to be the person from the task force with the rights to do that and the responsibility to manage it? Because I don't know, I guess you never know what could go on there. Or Facebook pages get hacked sometimes, and then someone has to have permissions to get back in and take it back. I don't know. That's just, I'd be curious on who's going to be responsible.
Okay, that's a good question. I know that Sky Gillum is the one that is an administrator on that Facebook page, and I'm in touch with her frequently about our LINK program, and she puts missing people on there. We can definitely talk about what that looks like, and if there's a task force member that would like to be part of the moderation behind that page, I think that's a good idea. So I could send out a doodle poll or a survey monkey to see if there's any interest from any of our task force members to do that.
Okay, thanks, Tina. news from task force members? Hearing none. Are there any questions? I will go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anything regarding MMIP, the task force, or any of the items we discussed today? You're a tough crowd today.
Quiet today.
Yeah. So that's it for our agenda today. Unless anybody has anything, we will get a doodle pull out for the next meeting, I'm sure. And again, if you can testify, we'd appreciate it greatly. Reach out to Tina or Dana with questions regarding that. And maybe also just a heads up, if you are able to, just let us know so we can watch for you and know that we have representation that day.
I will be sending out some emails containing the bill language and some information about the overviews so that task force members have a good idea of what each bill means and what they would be discussing in the hearings. So I'll send that out this afternoon.
All right. Anybody like to motion to adjourn if we have nothing else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for participating today. It's nice to hear from you, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Bye,
afternoon.
everyone.
Bye.